Hello, everyone. Today, I wanted to talk about the Philadelphia Flyers' upcoming 2022 season and where I think that they will end up. So, last year, they ended up sixth in the East Division, and it's a very tight division, and the Flyers were really in it until they just collapsed. And it was a terrible collapse. They let up 15 straight goals or 13 straight goals in 2 games against the Rangers, and they looked awful from that point on. And I'm a guy that prefers to watch a good tight hockey game over just, oh yeah, my team runs through. Like those games where my favorite team runs through everyone are fun and all, but by the end of the game, it's like, okay, let's just get this game over with. So, and I just felt bad for the Flyers at points. So, they were sixth in the East with a 25, 23, and 8 record for 58 points. So, just above 500. They were right there. But you have to think, if it wasn't the East, they probably would have been a lot better. Because the East is by far the hardest division. And honestly, with it being the Metro, I don't think it's much easier. So looking at their lineup, there really aren't many changes to the forward group other than a couple departures. Cam Atkinson will be replacing Jacob Voracek. Personally, I think that's a downgrade. I know a lot of people do think that's an upgrade, but I feel like Atkinson has been very overrated throughout his career. A lot of the times it's because who else really scores for Columbus? And he's been overrated ever since Panarin left, I would say. So it really can be that, I think. That's just who else is going to score for them. But then they still make the playoffs. So I'm not really sure what it is. But everyone seems to think that he's like this elite goal scorer where at best I see him as a solid second line option. And they will have Thompson replacing Nolan Patrick, who they traded in a Ryan Ellis deal, which that was a very good trade for them. It was a big risk, though, because former second overall picks, Nolan Patrick, he still had the potential to be a star, but he really wasn't showing it, and I think it was a smart move on Philly's part. Speaking of that trade, though, moving on to the blue line, they added Ryan Ellis, who is phenomenal, and immediately is their number one defenseman, and would be a number one defenseman on most teams, but he's been sheltered behind Roman Josi. And I remember when PK Subban left Nashville, Roman Josi came forward as, hey, he's actually an elite number one defenseman. It's not the Subban show. Now that Ellis is leaving here, I think that we'll see, hey, it wasn't just the Josi show in Nashville. Ellis is a phenomenal defenseman and gets very overlooked because of players like Josi and Ekholm. On the second pairing, they added Rasmus Ristolainen from Buffalo. And I think that's a really good acquisition for them. A lot of people didn't like it, mainly the advanced stat community. But personally, I just think that he was on Buffalo. You can't expect a player to play well on Buffalo. Especially he's forced to be a top pairing, the best defenseman on the team next to Dahlin. And even then, Dahlin's still a kid, so they kind of do expect probably just as much as they do from Dahlin out of him. And he's just not at that level. Now that he's sheltered in second pairing minutes playing with Travis Sanheim, I can see that being a very solid pairing for them. And I think it'll be really good. And then on a third pairing, they added Keith Yandle, which I think that'll be really good too. Keith Yandle was bought out by Florida, which I didn't understand why they didn't have him waive his no movement clause for the expansion draft if they were just going to buy him out anyway. But after his buyout, Philly is the team that picked him up, and I think that could be a really good pickup. Braun is more of a defensive-minded defenseman, and playing with Yandle could really help cover up some of the defensive holes in Yandle's game. And Yandle, when he is on his game, he can be one of the best offensive defensemen in the NHL. But he always has those glaring holes defensively, which is the problem. And this season, when it comes to Yandel, I'm just rooting for him to break that Iron Man streak. That'd be really cool. It's not often that you see records being broken nowadays, since Gretzky holds pretty much all of them. So something as small as like the Iron Man streak is really cool to watch somebody break. This is where I think the biggest question is. In net, Carter Hart is still the starting goalie. There's no question about that. But he had a terrible year last year, and I'll get more into that later. But his backup goalie, Martin Jones, probably one of the only goalies that I would say last year had a worse season than Hart. Jones was god-awful, and I don't see it getting any better. And while it was a very bad defense in San Jose, I feel like Jones really didn't help them and kind of made them look a bit worse at times. Martin Jones is just way past his prime, and at this point in his career is an awful goalie. And trusting him to be the backup, I don't think is a smart choice. So what notable subtractions did they make? Jacob Voracek, who I always thought was a very solid top 6 forward, and he could chip in top line minutes if you need him to. Cam Atkinson is who they replaced him with. I don't see him being able to chip in on the top line like Voracek. And on top of that, you're losing the chemistry that Voracek has had for years with this team and replacing it with Atkinson. So, I digress about that, though. I just don't really understand that trade for Philly. But I know a lot of people do think they won. They lost Brian Elliott, who I think is much better than Martin Jones, and I think that Philly would have been better off keeping him, but I understand if Elliott wanted to leave, definitely. And they also lost Robert Hagg, but he was replaced by Ryan Ellis. So, obviously a huge improvement there. They lost Philip Myers, but he was replaced by Rasmus Ristolainen, which I think that it's an improvement. But Myers is young, and he absolutely had the potential to be better than what Ristolainen is. And who knows, Ristolainen might not have that bounce back here that I expect. And then they lost Nolan Patrick, who was replaced by Thompson. And like I was saying, Nolan Patrick has the potential to be great, but he's always hurt. And he always leaves you thinking, okay, so now he's going to do something. And really never hasn't panned out yet. So I think that replacing him is a good move, but I do think Thompson is still a downgrade, though. Now, the key stats that I wanted to focus in on are Carter Hart stats. Last season, in 27 games played, so no, that's less than half, and 2 of those were in relief. 27 games played, he had an .877 save percentage and a .367 goals against average. That is terrible, especially for a goalie that going into this season was supposed to be seen as one of the best young goalies in the NHL. It's just really hard to see the promise after this season. And yes, he's still like 21 years old, and I absolutely do think he'll have a bounce back year. But I thought everyone was rating him last season, and I was saying that in the goalie rankings videos last year too. But you still have to compare that to last year's stats. In 43 games played last year, he had a .914 save percentage and a .242 save percentage. And I didn't think that the team was worse last year than it was the year before. So that huge drop off, it could be that thing of rookie goalies and them not knowing how to stop them, and then when they figure it out, just keep beating them. It's kind of happened to Matt Murray, and it's happened to other goalies. But I really don't know, and if they miss the playoffs, it could be due to, well, the big thing is the Metropolitan Division. But it could be due to Carter Hart not being good enough, and they don't have a backup that can replace him, because Martin Jones is just as bad, if not worse. But where do I see them finishing in the Metro? So, Metro is one of the, if not the hardest division to predict. But I would say that they can finish anywhere from 6th to 2nd in the division. And it's a big gap, but it's hard to guess. The forward group, I do really like it, but there are some questions there. Lindbaum, JVR, Hayes are a couple examples. Atkinson are a couple examples. Is that offense good enough for in the Metropolitan Division with the Capitals, Rangers, Penguins, Devils, Islanders to be better than all those teams? It'll be tight. But the blue line has gotten a lot better. But the big questions there are, can Ristolainen have the bounce back year? And can Yandel cover up those glaring holes in his defense? And then in net, you need a bounce back from Hart, or they could finish as low as 7th or 8th. 8th being a stretch, but Columbus would really have to plummet. I would really have to surprise people for that. But thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments, and let me know what team you want me to do next. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.